I mentioned great 1979 film about a guy who really didn't have too much on the ball intellectually, but because he only repeated what he'd heard on television in small snippets, he only said enough to make you think he knew more. The public thought he was an economic genius. And that's exactly what's happening to Mark Carney. People are assuming this guy must know everything because, my God, he was the governor of the Bank of England. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. He's been associated with the World Economic Forum. He worked for the United Nations as their globe-trotting climate change goodwill ambassador. He must know something. But here's the real Mark Carney.
You know, Chauncey, there's something about you. You don't play games with words to protect yourself.
I had no brains at all. The stuff with rice pudding between the ears.
He's very, very sexy. But I think he's brilliant.
I raised that boy.
It's always somewhat surprising to find men like yourself working so intimately with the president and yet somehow managing to remain relatively unknown. Yes, it is surprising.
And look at him now.
I can't write.
Well, I heard he speaks 8 languages.
I can't read. I like to watch TV. I understand.
How much steel are you using these days, Todd?
Yes, my friends, that is the Mark Carney who is impressing Tom Mulcair so much, who is impressing so many Canadians. Apparently 40% of them think he's better suited to deal with Donald Trump than Pierre Poilievre. This is absolutely outrageous how anybody who's demonstrated how little he understands can be touted as some kind of economic savior. He's like the character in Being There. There's nothing there. There's no substance. It's just a few phrases he likes to repeat over and over again and ad nauseum. But here's the kicker, and I've saved the best for last, folks. Here's where Mark Carney wants to take us, where Canadians have never gone before, and where the socialist governments in Europe have taken their people. Mark Carney wants to take us farther down the carbon tax road than even Justin Trudeau imagined possible. He is going to apply the lessons he's learned as a globalist leader to Canada. Watch this.
Do is to ensure that there's fair competition for our companies and that we penalize high polluting foreign imports. So we're going to develop a carbon border adjustment mechanism. What that does is promote jobs here at home. It prevents carbon leakage abroad.
All right. What this is this a retaliatory tariff. Do you think it's going to promote, why is it going to promote jobs here? When this is all about punishing so-called polluters for creating carbon, which of course is a complete myth. They're not polluting. But this is somehow going to create jobs in Canada because we're going to push corporations out of Canada. And miraculously, Canadians are going to create jobs to replace these. This is a retaliatory tariff that's going to increase the price of food by 20, 30, 40%. This is madness. Let's listen to him some more, because this man wants to take you down the road to socialist serfdom in the name of net zero and the fight against climate change.
And it aligns Canada with our allies who are still engaged in the fight against climate change.
Now we'll listen to Liz Truss here in a minute, This is from my interview with Liz Truss. She addressed this very issue. But what's going on here? This is a retaliatory tariff. And we know Donald Trump already said, we introduced retaliatory tariffs. He's going to double the 25 to 50%. Mark Carney is an economic genius? No, he's a simpleton. Or he's just a madman who wants to take Canada down the socialist road to serfdom because that's what he's been indoctrinated into doing. He spent so long hobnobbing, socializing, working with the globalists that he cannot think otherwise. He's not thinking Canada first. He's thinking globalist first. He's thinking EU first. He's thinking all of those countries that are fighting the climate change war with Canada. That's who he's fighting for. He might talk like a reasonable guy at times. He says he wants to reduce regulation. In fact, the other day he was compared, and we'll get back to Liz here in a second. The other day he was described by one publication as Pierre Poilievre light because he's sounding kind of reasonable about the carbon tax. Yeah, it went too far. It hurt too many Canadians. So we're going to get rid of that consumer carbon tax. And he wants to reduce regulation, supposedly. But what he wants to do is even worse, because we'll be paying not just the 40 cents a liter on the gas or the 60 cents a liter on the gas. That, of course, is also applied on everything that we have to transport in this country, especially food. It's going to create a retaliatory tariff situation where we're going to be paying incredibly more for our food. And Mark Carney doesn't give a damn about that because he's more interested in fighting climate change, as he says, along with our globalist friends, as he likes to talk about them. Mark Carney is a dangerous man. And for people to begin to think for a second that he's got some kind of secret recipe for the Canadian economy, that he really understands it. And he's fooled Tom Mulcair. That's why I showed that, because Tom Mulcair can sometimes be reasonable. He's been totally taken in by Mark Carney's absolute blather, his nonsensical patter, his stupid talking points that mean absolutely nothing. The guy really is not capable of running a country, a government, even a party. But that's what we're looking at with Mark Carney. He has put it over on too many people. And I tell you, Poilievre has got to expose what he's doing here with this initiative because it's dangerous.
In the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the IMF, all of these bodies now subscribe to the same worldview. And it's a new version of socialism. That's what this is. You know, net zero, transgender extremism, Islamism. All of these things involve taking power away from individuals and families and businesses and instead giving the power to supranational institutions. And that is what people in the West are now rebelling against, and rightly so, because if we carried on down that path, we would be seeing the end of our civilization.
Precisely. And that's what we're going to see. See that white space there? That's the end of our civilization. And that's what Mark Carney is heralding. We're going to keep on Mark Carney behind every day here until we expose what this man is all about, what he's trying to do, how he's trying to punish Canadians in the name of climate change, how he's trying to destroy this economy, and how he's not suddenly a moderate. He's not suddenly this guy who really just wants to be a little to the left of Pierre Poilievre. He might even be to the left of Justin Trudeau. This man, of course, who hobnobbed with the friends of Jeffrey Epstein. We have those pictures. He's never addressed that. And to suggest that, he's a regular guy like you and I. Because, well, he was born in the Northwest Territories, raised in Edmonton, Played hockey, for goodness sakes, during university. That makes him safe. This man has completely been dominated, controlled, and indoctrinated by the forces of globalism. He is an agent of the World Economic Forum. He's an acolyte of Klaus Schwab and the rest of them who want to enslave you and say, you won't own anything and you'll be happy. You'll be eating insects and you will never see meat again. You'll be living in 15-minute cities and never allowed to travel. That's where Mark Carney comes from. And that's what Pierre Poilievre has to remind voters of every day. Because Mark Carney should not be allowed to put this charade over on Canadians. And as long as I'm on this show, I am going to ensure that we talk about this every day. Mark Carney is a clear and present threat. He's an existential threat to Canadian freedom, to your freedom and mine, and to the health of the Canadian economy, which no, he doesn't understand better than Pierre Poilievre or other Canadian political leaders. He understands it less because his understanding is all predicated on net zero concepts of getting rid of fossil fuels and of going back to a new Stone Age that will usurp your ability to just live a normal life as a Canadian citizen. That's all I've got